Our goal in this miners' town hall meeting is to discuss best practices in preventing mine emergencies. The most visible mine disaster viewed in the media as the fires burned was the Farmington disaster in 1968. At 5:30 a.m. on November the 20th, a massive explosion occurred in the Consol No. 9 mine near Farmington, West Virginia. The meaning of the sound and the vibration generated by the explosion was rapidly understood by miners and families nearby the disaster. Rapidly spreading fire with flames shot into the air about 150 feet, and 78 miners of 99 were trapped in the mine. The fires from the explosion burned for 9 days, and the mine was sealed on November 30th. It wasn't unsealed for 10 months. After nearly 10 years of recovery work, 59 bodies were found and removed, but the other 19 miners were permanently sealed in the devastated mine. In this disaster, the causes were never determined, but contributing factors were believed to be inadequate ventilation, inadequate control of explosive methane and coal dust, and inadequate testing for methane. In response, in 1969, the Federal Coal Mine Safety and Health Act was passed by Congress, codifying new regulations aimed at ensuring that such conditions and others would be controlled through compliance with the provisions. For decades, the number of fatalities decreased dramatically, and record lows were achieved from time to time, but progress was interrupted by other disasters periodically. So you can see the smoke bellowing from the mine at this point, and the absolute devastation showing up on the surface from all that had happened underground. And as you can imagine, families had started joining in the observation of this event in addition to the media. In 2010, the explosion at the Upper Big Branch Mine South near Montcole, West Virginia was the worst U.S. mine explosion in 40 years. And we realized that conditions supporting major explosions can still occur all too frequently. One thing that I must mention at this point in time is that over decades, we had made tremendous progress in minimizing the disasters and trying to reduce them as much as possible. In 1981 through 1990, there were 8 disasters and 95 miners had died. However, in 1991 to 2000, there was 1 disaster and only 8 miners had died, still 8 too many, but tremendous progress had been made. Unfortunately, during 2001 through 2010, there were 6 disasters and 70 miners perished. And this town hall meeting is dedicated to trying to raise to a level of understanding and make these opportunities available through this miners' town hall meeting. And now we'll look at a clip on the Upper Big Branch mine disaster.
At approximately 6:40 a.m. on April 5th, the day shift longwall crew arrived on the Headgate 1 North longwall section. They parked their rail-mounted man trip at the out-by end of the mule train and walked up the headgate entries to the face. They found that the third shift maintenance crew had left the shearer parked at about number 34 shield. The crew began producing coal and made their first call out at 7:30 a.m. The pre-shift examination record shows that Rick Lane, longwall foreman, called out the pre-shift exam at 2:40 p.m. to Kevin Medley, the oncoming longwall foreman. This is the last known communication from the longwall to the surface. During the investigation of the longwall, Methane was found to be emanating from the mine floor near the back of several shields near the tailgate end of the longwall face. Investigators believe the methane migrated from behind the longwall shields. The methane encountered an ignition source, likely hot streaks, left by two dull, worn shearer bits cutting sandstone. Additionally, the water spray system was effectively absent because 7 water sprays were missing from the tailgate drum of the shearer. MSHA believes that as the shearer cut into the tailgate entry, a methane ignition occurred and was seen by the shearer operators, who shut off the shearer. The flame from this ignition continued burning behind the shields. During this time, flame from the methane ignition continued burning in the gob behind the shields, and those miners continued their evacuation. At about 3:02 p.m., the flames encountered an explosive mixture of methane in the tailgate entry, causing an explosion. This methane explosion involved about 3,000 cubic feet of methane air mixture. The flame from this methane explosion created enough heat and energy to suspend and ignite coal dust from the mine roof, ribs, and floor, resulting in a massive coal dust explosion. The methane explosion propagated away from the longwall face. With a flame speed of approximately 300 feet per second, the methane explosion would have extinguished in about a half a second, while generating a maximum pressure of about 4 pounds per square inch of pressure. However, significant quantities of coal dust were suspended and ignited during the methane explosion. The ignition of coal dust allowed the explosion to eventually propagate throughout all the underground areas affected by the explosion flame. Several hundred feet before reaching the crossover entries, additional coal dust became involved in the flame, and speeds accelerated to over 1,000 feet per second in all tailgate entries.
We'll be examining 4 major topics during this panel discussion and interacting with our panelists. One of them will be prevention of fires and explosions in mines, and including rock dusting and other preventive measures. We'll also look at mine ventilation and the critical role that it plays. We'll talk a little bit about ground control, or roof and rib control, and in the important facets of that. And then finally, we'll talk about pre-operational checks and the thoroughness of making those. In the first segment, first let me mention that all of us want to prevent mine disasters. When we go to work every day, we indeed have that on our mind, that nothing like this is going to occur. And that is the essence of this Miners Town Hall meeting. Our miner experts will talk about their best practices on these 4 major topics.